Hey, we're live. My name's Steve Jaguar.
And I'm his co-host, Mike Foster.
Welcome to our show, a visual newsletter for your impatient world, all things Kubernetes, cloud native, big spenders, and some odd moments in the industry, along with some tools and demonstrations of cloud native automation, etc. What do
Yeah,
we have
all
today?
those topics and more. We have a little bit of some Apple screw-ups that have been going on, some crazy exploits that are happening. Cheryl gives us her top 10 predictions. Really look forward to digging into that. And we're doing Rancher Part 2 demo at the end. So thanks for joining. Going to be a great show and glad to have you back. Yes, 2-week hiatus.
2-week hiatus. I went on a holiday. That's my fault. I went to Italy. I got to travel. I got to experience COVID-friendly travel, which was I could get into it. You had to like show you had a test. You had to show you had double vaccination. You had to show it again. You had to get a separate test before you went to the airport. You had to get a test while you were away, or they wouldn't let you come back. That was awkward, but we did it.
If I travel like that, that'd be the most tests I'd passed in a while. So little booster there. But yeah, if you aren't familiar with the show, if you're on Twitch, YouTube, like and subscribe. Leave us a comment, send us an email at the show name at gmail.com with any suggestions. Or if you want to come on live and give us a demo, let us know.
Totally.
But so Steve, you've been traveling. What you went to some conferences too? What else you been up to?
I did a live conference, everything you wanted to know about Kubernetes, but we're afraid to ask. I did a talk about reducing mean time to remediate for cloud misconfiguration. I've actually been busy at actual real life things. And then I took like half a dozen COVID tests and I didn't have it, which is awesome.
That's great news.
Yeah, weird. Have you been able to leave your home yet?
No, not yet. Still, I wanted to go to KubeCon, but Canadian travel into the US is not exactly easy to set up, especially from a business standpoint, right? Travel insurance and things like that.
Right.
A lot of hassle. So no, just been plugging away, playing with Rancher. It's been a good time.
All right.
And I get to watch articles that you send me, like the first one that we have from Cheryl.
Okay, well let's dive straight in. Let me share my screen. Yeah, this was a presentation that she's given here, but she's actually, we're kind of being a bit of a spoiler. She was the spoiler because she's doing this again very soon in another event. But lessons she learned from her 3 years at inside the CNCF, because I don't know if you're aware, Cheryl Hung, she founded the CNCF user group. She's kind of a big deal. She was kind of almost like a compere for KubeCon, like one of the main speakers on the keynote, and she's kind of giving her lessons from there. She's at Apple now, which was
it's a big move.
It took something big to pull her away from the CNCF, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And she's listed some of her top things. Did you go through any of these and like latch on to anything in particular? Because I did.
I think the cross cloud becomes more real is interesting. I think that you're seeing a lot of managed services pop up in cloud, whether it be Anthos or EKS Anywhere. But the question is, like, nobody runs Anthos in production. I haven't heard of a single use case. If there is, let me know. So I think there might come a time where the support for these platforms is actually getting a little bit better, that it's become, okay, we can trust this thing in production.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a little premature, but that was an interesting one I'd seen. Kubernetes on the edge, definitely same sort of issue, is management of small clusters. How do you do it? A lot of these platforms take up so much resources already, so you need something like K3s. That one's going to be interesting. GitOps, I think, was probably the biggest. Yeah, like that makes sense. Those are the three that kind of stood out to me.
There was one that wasn't in the list. There's a few facts, like the difference between what, I think she's got a slide from Cloud Native 2017 to like the size of the ecosystem, just in terms of growth. It blew my mind a little bit. And there's one that didn't make the list down below. Well, obviously more Rust. I think we predicted this in a few editions, is that Rust is the new Go, and whatever is behind Rust will be skyrocketing up there. But there was one that eBPF, of course, Kubernetes for the edge. There's something in here that didn't make the list, like chaos engineering. Actually, what I thought, and now I remember my first thought. Why is she predicting for 2021? What month is this? I could predict 2021 in September or October. So it's accurate regardless. Oh yeah, pluggable DevOps experience. That was it. Backstage. I even brought Backstage up because I was like, oh, yeah, right. That is useful. Because something that in here resonated with the thing I did last week, which was the Kubernetes, everything you wanted to ask about Kubernetes. It was somebody asked the CTO from Starling Bank, what about this ecosystem? What tools do you use? It was like a cry for help. And the answer was as little as possible. I find the whole thing so confusing. If I cannot make the decision, I will do that. And it was like, and that comes down to managed services, services that can make these experiences easier. That would, for me, big 2022 prediction. If I were to make one, that was where I was coming from. It was good though. It did seem a little obvious. Service mesh consolidation. I'm not sure I really got that. Like, are we getting rid of some of them, or
maybe they're narrowing the scope to the like Sidecar architecture works in specific use cases, so you really don't need to have all these features and functionality on top, right? Like sometimes maybe it gets a little bloated.
Right.
I don't know.
Could be. Anyway, it's good and it's out there. You can see where it is. It's on her website, Cheryl. And you can see the link down below in the show notes on YouTube. So if you want to take a look at what they were, it's fascinating.
Definitely.
All right. Shall we move on?
Let's do it.
You found this one.
I found this one.
Really good.
Covery? How do you pronounce the app here?
I don't know. I was going to go with Covery.
Yeah, it's interesting. Terraform is not a golden hammer. It's a very well-written article with an actual use case, walking through basically some CD examples, HCL, how you use Terraform. It's a great breakdown and it's got a good flow. It's a really well-written article. There are some serious issues with Terraform. State management is really annoying. Injecting secrets is also annoying, which is why you have something like Vault to help you with that. But overall, I guess the point is, like, when people get good at Terraform, because it is declarative, and when you get good, it is very easy to configure and maintain big services in the cloud. You want to use it everywhere. And so then you use it in anti-pattern ways, or in ways that it really shouldn't be used, when there's other smaller applications that can add on and do the same thing. So it's just important to know the limits of Terraform, what it's good for, and basically just find the right tool for the job is the short story. Steve, you had a chance to read through it?
I did actually. And I was, well, my business hat was on when I saw it was written by a company, and I thought, oh, they're just going to flip this into whatever they sell. And they didn't. It's almost like, and then I had to do this. I had to go and find out who they were, because I'd never heard of them. And thought, oh, okay. Simplest way to deploy it. So this is more a documentary, I suppose, on their journey on, because they come across as, we were going to use Terraform, and then we realized this is not the best thing for what we're trying to do. This is their whole USP of their business. And so they were just expressing right tool for the right job, and saying some of the key lessons that you can learn. You can kind of see over here the problems that they faced and how they solved them, and then advices and suggestions down here. So I actually thought it's really good. They weren't trashing Kubernetes beyond for no reason. They were saying these are the limitations. It was extremely practical and pragmatic. So yeah, it was great.
The no reconciliation part is one of the strongest issues I have with something like a declarative service, versus something that has imperative functions and capabilities of it. Right, like you create a virtual machine, and it's just like, okay, well, if you don't like this one, destroy it and rebuild it. Like, do we need to do that every time? Is there other capabilities? Can we switch? the amount of CPUs without destroying it. And I understand why they made that choice, especially in cloud. It's just in some use cases, in some situations, you don't always want to do that. It's kind of annoying. But yep,
It's really good.
It's yeah, really well written article. If you had a chance, check it out.
Links down below. All right.
On YouTube.
On YouTube. So let's bash forward. You can see, you can always tell if I flip and it's scrolled down. It's because we were already talking about it and reading it live before the show started. Passwordless future for your Microsoft account, or maybe anything really.
Yeah, nobody likes passwords. Amen to that.
That's it.
I've been a big proponent of 1Password. It's worked flawlessly for me. Huge fan. And the point is I just get a suggested password that's like 20 digits long, and I save it, and that's it. And so Microsoft here, they have a voice detection system for your desktop, and they want to pair it basically with a PIN system and two-factor auth. So username, PIN, two-factor, and like an OTP or two-factor authentication, 6-digit code, and that's all you need. So basically you have username, whatever PIN you set, and then you add that two-factor auth on top of it, and you'll be able to sign in. And honestly, there are tons of companies that do this for internal authentication. Big fan of it. All you need to do is remember a PIN, and that's it. And they kind of outline too, right, why it's so annoying, because if you want a secure password and you want to remember it, you're not going to remember it. I think if you go down, the problem with passwords. It's like, new password, secure enough, something I can't remember. Always been the only challenge that this system has is it wouldn't work with companies that are on site. Like if you're in a lab or something like that, you can't really do this because you can't be pulling out your phone and using OTP to sign into your, right? Like it works for remote and personal use. It wouldn't work in the industry. And I think that's a different issue altogether. But anyways, I'm just all for removing passwords and just doing everything on an automated way.
Well, totally. I mean, the solutions for more localized, you could say, like I use a YubiKey, so that still works. You can carry that anywhere you want, and that can be your one-time password. But for people who have no idea what OTP means, so you have that as a two-factor when you do something. But there are other ways of doing it, and you're right completely. I find it amazing that how two really simple things that don't seem anywhere near as secure as a password can be so much better. Like this platform we use, we log in with an email, it sends us a one-time password. We have to come back, kind of log in again with that, and I don't have to remember a password ever. Yeah. And it's so much easier to do things that way than it is to try to remember or even use LastPass, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, there was an interesting quote in that article that was hackers don't hack, they log in. Right. and that's the thing. Whenever you have a single device, now you have 1 point. If I have to authenticate on 2 devices, it is extremely hard for a hacker to get access to both. Right. And that's really the strength of it is I mean, Microsoft has their authenticator app. You have to use, like, let's say you have an iPhone, you use Face ID to get in. Anyways, hard to bypass that. It's a lot better. So very cool. And I'm all for it. The only thing that also is challenging is the cost aspect of not everybody has a phone and a computer, right? There's tons of places in the world that only have phones. So,
yeah,
right. Your phone is your personal computer and all that. So that's a challenge. And that's true. Actually goes into the next point really well. Why authorization is hard. For those who are unaware, authentication and authorization, two separate subjects. Authentication, I can verify who you are. Authorization is what can you do. Mm-hmm. And this article really kind of breaks that down in a very succinct way, especially with cloud services and applications. And we talked about this on the OWASP Top 10 2 weeks ago. The number one issue, configuration management, specifically like broken RBAC and IAM, and they phrased it differently, but yeah, it's just the authorization of who can do what when they can do it is a massive piece of the puzzle. And it also plays into how you design your application. When you have microservices now, there's a whole different layer. So it's just a let's just say there's a lot more to consider than I think people first think when they're designing their application, especially
when people, sorry, go ahead.
just the microservice architecture has changed a lot.
Totally. When they're talking about what's challenging and what's hard about it, somehow finding a way to normalize where you authorize whether someone can do something. It can start easy when you're small, but when you start to scale, trying to work out like, okay, well, we did it here, we embedded it here, and now we're doing it everywhere. And it's very easy to forget to do it once, and then an attacker can find what that path is to evade that level of authorization. And it does go through some of those pains of scaling. Was it using Ruby? Okay. And its examples, but it's still easy to understand when it's going through what the problems are with it. And it's good. So it's centralizing it, showing permissions in the UI is hard. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that this isn't what I do for a living.
Yeah. I mean, from Kubernetes standpoint, I've had so many instances of, hey, I create a namespace, I deploy an application to the namespace, and I was using Argo CD the other day. It's like, okay, label the namespace so Argo CD has permission. And then, like, let's say you want to add something else into that namespace. Well, do you want Argo CD to have permission on any of those applications? No. Okay, well, you have to create a new one. Then you have to set up a new service account for it. You don't want it to inherit the default service account. There's so much there that in the background you don't really think about. You're just like, I just want to deploy this. So yeah, authorization is hard. It's an aptly named article and definitely worth a read.
It is a huge read, by the way. So
yeah,
get a tea beforehand.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the crazy. Oh, actually, there's one more thing. Big announcement. Well, kind of pretty big.
Is it the glossary by any chance?
Yeah, the Cncf Glossary. You might have heard me talk about this a couple times. There's officially a website. Shout out to all the people working behind the scenes to get this done. I know that this has been talked about for the last couple months, 6 months, about our website, and looks great. I'm really curious if there are any watchers to go through this and tell me what seems a little off, because let's just say some of these definitions are vaguely defined by marketing teams, by the different cloud platforms. So interesting to hear what your take is. And there's some things obviously that are a little bit of just well-defined definitions that have been in the industry for years. So some of them are just, hey, maybe the problem it addresses. I like the format, what it is, problem addresses, how it helps, instead of going to Wikipedia and it's just like, hey, this is what containerization is. It's like, okay, thanks.
That's true. Who came up with was there anybody in particular that came up with the 3-tiered format?
I'm not sure.
Don't remember. All
right. I mean, on Zoom calls, I think it was the group, but yeah, I feel bad now if there was somebody who came up with it. It's a great format.
It is a good format. It is a good format. I think I jumped straight to DevSecOps, which is why this is still sitting here. And I got all the way down to reducing security mishaps and associated costs. And I thought, okay, good. I'm glad somebody mentioned costs at some point, because I felt like there wasn't a mention that actually integrating security into DevOps does reduce cost.
Yeah.
It's too often associated as a cost.
Specifically as a time as a cost, right?
Right. But it does. I mean, all it takes is minor security issues to amplify whatever cost you were trying to save. So, so that's good. That was in there. I've read a few of them, but I'm now going to pour over it because having just got back, I haven't done it. I'm very keen to read infrastructure as code, Kubernetes, and there's tons here. I think this is a challenge to any would-be rappers to do a cloud native glossary rap. That's what I'm throwing out there.
Oh man, I think Jonah Jones, you and Jonah Jones should make a little song together.
Well, yeah, there's that. There's him who I think previously said he wanted to do that, and then there was a guy at the last KubeCon who at the end, like he even looked the part and he did this rap, and I have to go find it. It's on YouTube. So if we have to figure out who that guy is, that challenge is out there now.
Yeah, and then after it's done, it'll show up in our WTF section later.
Yeah, totally. Of course it will.
Yeah. All right, on to some stuff that broke. vulnerability stuff. It's the good stuff.
Let's do it.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
All right. We have to, oh, where to go? Let me put it back up. Zing. Hackers exploiting critical VMware Center, specifically CVE 2021-22005 bug. It's a 9.8. And I like that VMware that has confirmed reports that it's exploited. Dude, I dove into this in a kind of odd way. So why did you add this here?
For a couple of reasons. One, it's a 9.8.
Yeah.
Two,
Yeah.
this is I think the second or third, basically 9.8 that VMware's had this year. A lot of it obviously based around vCenter, because if you have a major hub that controls all of your virtual machines, you need to make sure things secure. So it's very interesting, and also the fact it's in the wild. The POC's out there. If you haven't fixed it, fix it right now.
Yeah, so this guy here who writes everything in, I don't know where Zhang's from. I think I'm going to go with Korean or something, because if you look at his technical notes, well, I don't have that up, but I can easily do that. I'm going to tell you, good luck with that. I don't know what that is. And it doesn't tell me how to translate it, but you can go through and look at his code, because he does have a proof of concept on how to do it, and he has creatively left it blank. So there's a piece missing. There's a piece missing that is the critical bit. So if you dive deeper into what this is as a default, it is a file upload, I think, to an unauthenticated API. So it's showing you all the steps to utilize the API and then put the part where you can upload the file in. And then in some of the notes in his GitHub repo, there is banter below with people saying, oh, well, you could do this or you could do that. So you can, like, even though he's left a gap, there are people answering what that gap needs to be in the conversation below. So that's sort of, that safety net has kind of backfired a little bit. But it reminded me, actually, it was interesting to see how it was done to achieve remote code execution, because it reminded me of 3 years ago, Sneak. I don't know if you remember Zip Slip? It was the name of a vulnerability in 2018, where a lot of the libraries that unpacked uploads that were zipped, for example, didn't do anything. They just went, sure, and uploaded them and unzipped them, thinking they were going to unzip into, say, a /temp. But if you'd uploaded with a hard path, like /etc/password or cron or whatever, it would go, even if it was and the web server had privilege, it would go blah, 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 and it would just replace parts of your core file system. So you could just create a new cron. Like this was discovered 3 years ago, and it made me look at this and go, this looks a little like that, where you give the power to right away. I was like, you give the power to upload something without authentication, well, you've got other problems going on there. Someone's gonna figure out how to break that, no matter what you feel you're doing with the uploaded file afterwards.
For sure.
So yeah, it was really interesting and not surprising to see people should really be getting as far away from that as possible, as soon as possible.
Yeah, no kidding.
All righty, that was a good one. What is the next bit? I got all sorts of stuff going on here.
Yeah, the next one is an Apple
hard.
one. Yeah, it was more because there's a great transition into the WTF section that I want to talk about with Apple. A couple different vulnerabilities came out, especially since they've been working on iOS 15. Let's just say they're not all Apple, especially when you're going to see a bunch of Apple headlines in the next couple months about vulnerabilities. And I think some of it is because of the new operating system, applications don't really know how to take advantage of it, or they make some issue. And it's like, Apple's going to be like, that's not our fault. That is so-and-so's fault. So there's going to be a lot of that finger pointing in the next couple months. But this one is iOS 15. This is an issue with the Wi-Fi that could be exploited. I believe that they've patched this or said that they patched this. But the point is not necessarily to... he wrote a blog post too about it if you wanted to click on that one, Steve. Read more in my blog post there.
Yeah.
Should have put that link in, but
bing. Now we're good.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a terrible. Is that real?
There's the next article has a really good one too. But yeah, so they had a couple 0-day vulnerabilities, and is expressing his issue with the Apple Security Bug Bounty program that they have, and how some things are Apple's fault, but they don't necessarily claim it's their issue. It's somebody else's, or they don't report it until after it's been publicly announced. They'll patch things in the background without saying it's a security patch, that it's just, hey, we're introducing these features.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason that's, it's not really about a vulnerability. Like, bad code is written, like, stuff happens, right? We're all humans. It's how you react to it. If you're not going to tell people there's an issue, well, they might not run out to go fix things, and then you could lead them to being exploited in different ways. But yeah, if you wanted to see the crazy stuff, let's just get into the WTF section, because we're teeing up the next Apple article, which comes with a great picture. So
yeah,
let's do it.
It's funny because all the articles that we have are they from the same guy? I think they are, really, aren't they?
I think it might be the privacy this one. I could see you click it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, great picture. Privacy, that's iPhone. That's a great video. If anybody hasn't seen this this guy, have you seen all the ones with the words dubbed over?
No.
I'll send you them later. It's crazy. But yeah, 3 0-day iOS vulnerabilities and a critique of the security bounty program from Apple. Huge Reddit thread about this, ripping into them. Basically, they had a bunch of 0 days. They basically said, yeah, we're not going to patch this because iOS 15, I think, has been through 8 beta stages now. And yeah, so there's the gamed 0 day that they released, and they have the timeline there too. So March 10th, 2021, I reported the vulnerability to Apple. Apple acknowledged it. May 20th, I requested a status update. May 30th, I requested a status update again, didn't get a response. July 1st, Apple says they're investigating. August 25th, Apple replied that they plan to address this issue in the upcoming update. And I don't believe...
Did he get anywhere? He got somewhere with one of them.
Yeah.
There's all the different updates. He's got the timelines. Still investigating. Yeah. Well, essentially, he said he would just write about it if they didn't write back. And now this is the article.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we've talked about the bug bounty program before. It might have been Google's.
Yeah.
But we have talked about this with the various different companies and their programs.
Some good, some bad.
Yeah. This has kind of been a known thing with Apple, though. I think the more popular as a platform it becomes, the more they're going to run to this issue. Like, they're running into the, hey, we have widespread adoption now. People are writing apps for us, and they're doing it poorly. Is this our fault? Is this their fault? How do we disclose this stuff? This is always a Microsoft in the 1990s and early 2000 issue too, right?
Totally.
I mean, and still is. But
well, all right. Yeah, well, no kidding. Yeah, that's true. I mean, as flawed as Apple might come across in here, recent events have still got me feeling that Microsoft is slightly more vulnerable, perhaps. I don't know, but Apple seems like a little bit up themselves in terms of, we have a perception of being better at security and better at privacy. So they're like just going to persistently be in denial that anything's wrong, even though I would imagine in the background they are legitimately, they take these things seriously.
Oh yeah.
They just don't want it getting out there in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So
and they're
quite cagey.
Yep. Worried about perception. I mean, they're obviously better at security. They lock down a lot of their platforms a lot more, right? You don't have the flexibility that you have on a Mac desktop, and that inherently makes things somewhat more secure.
Well, exactly. I mean, and 10 seconds, like one of the articles that made the cutting room floor for the show was yet another Android malware attack that happened like yesterday or something. So
yeah, that was
generally better.
This came out, and there was interesting discussion like, oh, I should drop Apple because of this, and then the person comments underneath like, where are you gonna go, Android? And that's it's kind of I think the consumer is basically just I just care about functionality, because security exploits aside, where are you going to go, right?
Exactly. Right.
Cool.
Are we on a new section? Oh, no, we aren't. We aren't, amazingly. This is still the WTF section. So we hit the next one?
Let's do it. Yeah, we have 2 or 3 more WTFs.
Hold on to bring it back. We got kicked out. You got it.
Yeah.
So the technology radar, that's, how old is that now? We must be getting on almost a year, right? Where
when it first got released, yeah.
Yeah, and they did storage and all sorts of other, I don't know, biased but boring subjects leading up to, and I think Cheryl used to have like a forum where she'd say, what subject do you want to see us do next? And we'd try and rally people to say something security related, and it took ages. And so I was excited to see September, the DevSecOps, technology radar was out from the CNCF. I thought, fantastic. Let's see what it's about. Now, before we get into why this is in the WTF section, let me just explain how this is done real quick. Like the technology radar, the idea of a technology radar is like a ThoughtWorks concept. So you can just Google that, or you can click the link down here and see where it came from. There's a very normal format, and it's like a way of surveying people to get a gauge on popularity, adoption, etc. Right? Different stages: adopt, trial, and assess. Important to know is that the methodology from the CNCF is that they engage their 140 companies within the user group, but they choose randomly a few of them to be kind of the editorial team, so for the radar, and then they're the ones that come up with the conclusions. So it's structured by the CNCF, but it's kind of taken over by the user group in its entirety. So keep that in mind when we look at the results. Any other items to say about the how-to on that?
Nope, that was succinct.
Cool. All right, so then we excitedly jump in on the results. What do you think? I mean, I know what you said to me off camera. I just want to know if you're going to say the same thing.
Yeah, it's just Istio. What? Adopt Istio?
Really?
I was looking through this again, and I think what happened is you got in a meeting, and they said, okay, you have all these different applications that do different things in Kubernetes and the CNCF. Let's pick what our top choice for each sort of section. So it's like, okay, policy management, OPA, CD, Argo, IAC, or declarative infrastructure. We're going to go Terraform. What's the other choice? Like Ansible, not open source. Terraform's got to be the go-to, right? Then you're going to go CNI. Calico is the one we want to pick here. And the reason why I think that that's what happened is because when you look at the assess section, it's very similar. It's like, okay, well, there's your GitHub Actions, CI, Linkerd as your service mesh is an assess, but then Istio is an adopt. It's like Linkerd is Kubernetes native. So unless there is some specific security functionality in Istio that's better, I feel like Linkerd was a lot easier to set up and operationalize than Istio.
Yeah, we just did that.
Yeah, and then like Cilium's there as a CNI over like Calico. It's like Cilium is one of the top adopted CNIs right now, and actually has a lot of very good security aspects to like the networking policy. So it's like I don't really get it.
Yeah, but I don't get it. It seems like reversed.
Yeah, instead of actually, I think it would be more interesting if you could get the information to do a survey on what the end user is using in their clusters. And so that's my guess as to how it was. Either they got 3 groups together and they said, what are you using? And this was the most voted on as what we're using. It's like, what are we experimenting with? But
so it's funny, the ThoughtWorks shape for how this is done is a public Google Sheet where people start to fill it in, and then this thing kind of automatically gets generated as they go. So I'd say if there's a flaw of it, whoever keenly goes in there and adds their tools first has the ability to bias the later entries and go, oh yeah, I do use that. Oh yeah, right. And so, certain technologies that are maybe just simply older or cooler become the ones that you want to say that you're using. It's not necessarily like, do they go to the Kubernetes people and go, hey, by the way, we have 500 clusters. What are we using in those clusters?
Yeah.
Who's really doing that? Are they the right people? I don't know. I think
That's
For
completely
some,
fair.
yeah,
And you could see it too, right? Like the applications in the adopt section are the more mature ones,
yeah.
right? I
I'm
mean,
not surprised
Calico,
Terraform's
yeah.
there.
Calico was, I believe, one of the first CNIs to implement networking policies that you could actually operationalize. Now it's pretty much a necessity in any CNI, so it's not like that's a differentiator. But
Hmm.
you can understand why people are like, oh, I've been using Calico since 2018, so it's like, yeah, adopt that. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm just interested to see, especially from the assess trial adopt, it's like X-ray. It's just dropped in
X-Ray's
there.
Artifactory. Like, I don't understand why Artifactory's here and X-Ray's there.
Yeah, we're
Those are
differentiating between the two.
why you're differentiating. They are both JFrog and X-Ray. You have X-Ray if you have Artifactory for your SCA. What's this doing? This is just holding your repository. It's just holding your code, and like that's not a.
Yeah.
It's weird because when you say DevSecOps, you're actually probably screaming, why don't we have a glossary that tells us what this means? Because
Nice.
because people have completely misinterpreted, because it frankly, DevSecOps means every single tool that is in the cloud native computing foundation landscape, technically, because that's the whole point, is the integration. If you meant security, then then give me your top security tools. But now everyone's gotten confused, so the answers are all muddy. I
Yep.
think this is a relatively disappointing result,
Mhm.
but wait till
Yeah,
you see this
I'm
stuff.
kind of shocked by Argo CD being in there.
What's it doing there? I mean, it's an enabler. How is it a DevSecOps
Yeah,
tool?
CD. I know that there's like 4 projects in the Argo project, so maybe I'm missing some functionality in some of the other ones. But Argo CD specifically,
Yeah, it's weird.
it's kind of like you should either be doing your security checks when it goes into GitHub or whatever your code repository is. But like Argo CD is basically just your, hey, go fetch and deploy.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
get that. It's
yeah.
strange. It's
So
weird because
yeah, really, you should be putting like whatever integrates into Argo CD and does if there's like automatic checks as part of it before you deploy it or something like that. But anyways,
yeah, I think it's, or is it its ability to have security easily and integrate? I don't know. It's
yeah,
the I don't see the brief that tells
yeah.
me what tools I should be thinking about that should go into here. So I think that one's not so good.
I also personally don't like the I don't know, baseball field diagram.
Well, that's
But
the
well, I
ThoughtWorks
go off on a
one.
rant, but yeah, it's like
I think more
have
of a
like I like a map
fan.
where it's like adopt all the way over to, hey, you need to implement, and then have like a, like easy to implement, and like you want to implement it all the way over on the right, and then harder to adopt, not mature, over on the left, sort of thing. Like a map, like
you could do a Gartner style cross or whatever. Yeah, that might work as well. I just want to quit. I don't want. We're going to run out of rancher time, but
yeah, true.
The themes are the themes that were drawn by those people who were made the editors. So I read this and went, security is the main focus of DevSecOps at the expense of the developer experience. My brain immediately went, this has to go into the WTF section. And then I looked and you'd already put it there. And I thought, great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Tools are serving security teams better than developers. This is the impression that the user group has. So I think the lesson to be learned here is anybody who is in the security tooling industry should read this and say, okay, so all of our efforts are completely backfiring still.
Yeah.
If this is the way
constant battle. Yeah.
Yeah. A constant battle, because I don't think any security vendor's goal is at the expense of developer experience. I think every single one is trying to make this easier, and it just sounds like it's still failing. Or there's a lot of people who are still from InfoSec, don't understand, and just feel like that's the education process for the people making the decisions is hard because the landscape is just changing so fast, which is the next thing they say, right? Yeah. I don't know who Geek Masher is, but I really like them.
Yeah. Spot on.
So this is crazy. So we do have to move on, unfortunately, because we could do too much time here. So
yeah, and the next article I really like too.
All right. Let's.
This really shouldn't be in the WTF section, but I wanted to get it in, and I thought that I think the fact this article needs to be written It was my big WTF.
All right. So we just jump straight in.
Yeah, just jump straight in. So zero trust is a concept, not a product.
Hold on.
Yeah, introduction to zero trust security architecture.
Wait
Yep.
for it.
The bingo card.
There it is. B1.
And if you scroll down, literally, it's bolded the first mass uncertainty about what zero trust means. It's like, yeah, it's because for some reason this is like just marketing just puts zero trust on everything, and now it's like, okay, well, everything's zero trust. What is this?
Yeah.
How do I know if an application
I knew it was, but now I don't.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, just the constant I guess give and take with the world. But yeah, it goes down to outlines the old trust model, working at your desktop computer to connect to the printer on the same floor on your private network. Nobody really cared. No admin really had to care about it, because in order to get access, you had to be in the office. So all you need to do is make sure nobody was in the office. Anyways, that's completely changed. And now you have people connecting from everywhere. So you need the admin tools to be able to manage that.
Yeah. They're right.
Yep.
I think personally, I love the airport thing. I did a whole talk like 2 years ago about relating the airport to security, to modern security, I suppose, and how we accept it there. I guess what I don't like about the phrase zero trust, and I don't think I've really thought of it that hard until I was reading this article, was just the word zero. Really, we want the opposite of total trust. Like, I just don't want you to totally trust things. And it's like, it doesn't have to be zero. Like, that's...
I think it's an interesting thing that in this day and age, that a lot of things are either all or nothing, because it makes for a better narrative to just you either have to be zero or you're completely trustworthy. And world isn't like that, but it's a lot better of a pitch than, hey, maybe sometimes like we should trust people, but maybe sometimes we don't trust people.
Trust. Sometimes trust doesn't sell.
Yeah, like security is just constant trade-offs. The fact that this has to be explained, I think, is sad, but they do a good job of communicating it. So good on you for writing that down and putting that idea in a very well-written article.
Yes, even the most secure environment is not 100% zero trust. That is like what it says in one of the final statements. It's like, yeah, that's right. So, but marketing doesn't like that. So,
yeah, because you're trusting that I'm gonna go in and not screw something up. Just because you give an employee access doesn't mean they're not gonna screw up something up within their own permissions, right? Like,
absolutely.
Anyways, yeah, right. You're right. The whole concept is a little wacky. I have zero trust in my applications, but no one can connect to the app. Please secure. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can't get the app running. Some hacker comes in and gets it done for me.
So we have one more WTF, don't we? The ExpressVPN.
So it's funny, I'm going to eat my words right now, because we were just talking about VPNs, I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And I was like, oh, ExpressVPN doesn't share data. It's like, that's all you can ask for in a VPN, right? Like, just don't share my data. Don't collect my data. It's like, oh yeah, just kidding. Unless the government asks you to share information, in which case they forward it to them. So yeah. So UAE basically said, hey, we want information on the VPN, blah, blah, blah. And so I believe this is kind of more of an article of the employees asking the question. The story came out a couple weeks ago, but ExpressVPN worked with the UAE government to spy on the people using it in the UAE, and it's kind of like
right,
nothing is safe. So
yeah, that's why I got the VPN, was so I could have privacy.
The only other option is go and create your own.
A VPN is a great tool if you want to gather information about what people are doing under the guise of privacy. Fantastic work.
Oh yeah. Remember we were talking about that Australian app? It's like, hey, here's this super secret app, and then they had this whole security ring that they destroyed, and drug ring.
Yeah,
right. It's like, yeah, here's this secure app. Here, come and use it, and then everyone just starts talking about it, like thinking they're not being read. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
so now
Like
I'm at
that.
the point I'm going to go and pay like $20 a month for a very small VM in GCP and just set up my own VPN at this point.
Done.
Like, it's ridiculous. Probably cheaper too. So
Probably.
all right.
Good section.
Yeah. Now we're into the big money. A lot of money.
All right.
Yes.
I snuck one in on you, which was this one, which wasn't originally in our list, except for the fact that I noticed that this article, written by this guy who works for this company who does this thing, has a little thing across the top that says we got 4 million in seed funding. So tiny company. I don't know if that's tiny. That's a pretty good seed fund, 4 million.
Yeah.
We should try
for
and get
kickoff.
seed funding for this.
Good luck to them. Yeah, the whole application is just predicated on developers. You push your code to GitHub, and then it goes and deploys it for you. And it's kind of nice. Like, imagine if you're a developer and it's like, hey, I want to get this application up and running. I don't want to have to worry about infrastructure. I don't even want to log into AWS. You pay this company, and then all you have to do is just push your code, and then they manage the application for you.
That's good. Yeah.
That's what I took from it, unless I'm wrong. But in the managed service world, I think that we're moving to. It's a great idea.
Cool idea. All right. Not quite as huge as 205 million for Coalition Insurance.
Insurance provider.
Super dangerous thing to get into. But I guess they have confidence. This is their E funding. Total raised to 505 million at a 3.5 billion post-money valuation. This, I don't know, scares the crap out of me. But all they need is to, like, for them to get hacked or something to go wrong with them, and it's like it all comes crumbling down. But
interesting conversation about you incentivize something because, like, hey, there's a bunch of hacking going on. There's payouts happening, so you're incentivizing hackers to hack more. In a way. Right.
Well, yeah, of course, because now there's insurance. Now people can just get hacked and pay the ransomware.
So I don't need to pay for security tools. I just pay for insurance.
Insurance companies win. Hackers win. People will get their data back anyway, and they'll just pay it in.
I just don't understand. I guess it kind of makes sense. Like, you're basically signing away all the data. Like, people have kind of accepted that when you're connecting to the internet, it's not your data anymore. It's weird to take insurance out on, like, whether or not you protect somebody's data. It's like, I don't know. It's an interesting concept. It's new.
I feel if I was going to be engaging in a B2B operation with a company, I would be curious to know if they had insurance like this against ransomware, because I'd be like, I don't know if I trust you less now.
Yeah,
because I don't want my data to be. I don't want your security to. I don't want this to be a backstop.
Geek Masher is just on fire today.
Yeah, I gotta whoever this is on the show, please.
Yeah, it's great.
Special guest, you're earning special guest status. Yeah, so that's bonkers, but totally in line with where cybersecurity is in the world right now. Insurance was definitely going to happen, so they're doing great until all that comes crashing down and we report it on the show. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. And one last one before we get into Rancher. Cyber risk management platform, Panaraise, now 42 million.
So, like many of the things, never heard of them.
Yeah, I'm also always curious whenever, like, what is a risk management platform? That is a unique. That is a unique designation.
Well, all right. Let's automate, accelerate, and scale your third-party security process.
Yeah. So I'm guessing this has to do with if you want to onboard people, third parties into your company. It's like, hey, this is a process at which people come into your company and how you can secure, vet, and make sure that when they integrate into your system, they're secure.
That is actually, if that's correct, what you just said, that is really good.
For big companies, I can understand why they got so much money, right?
Yeah, because then they could ask the questions, hey, do you have cybersecurity insurance?
Yeah, it's like, and all these big companies have vendor specific processes. It's just going to be basically, hey, you have a new vendor, go in here, start the process, do your vetting. Here are the questions you need to ask. Like, ask them if they have. It makes sense. It's kind of cool if that's what they're doing.
It completely does. If that's what they're doing, we can look into this a little bit further. But so when I was at Synopsys, because we had like a wide bank of security tools, right? I get asked a lot, can I use this as a gatekeeper for third-party vendors that are writing software for me? Can I use this as a tool to vet how well they're doing things or their security? And I was like, okay. So that just to me says somebody out there doing that for you is a good business, and maybe this is it. Yeah, okay, I get it now. If that's this, let's assume it is.
Before we get into Rancher, my only hesitation is, do vendors pay to get into this platform? Is there something where it's like, hey, here is our sort of like already approved providers that you can pick from, right? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, continuous vendor assessments one time, or do I hire them and they don't know who the vendors are? But you can see how vendors can totally game this.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
I'd be very interested to know that relationship on the back end between if vendors are vetted or if they have to vet every time a new vendor comes in, because at some point, like, you're going to have a bunch of different companies who use your service and you've had previous vendor vetting before. So
yeah, if I'm a vendor that's been vetted, there's getting a lot of alliteration going on. If I've been vendor who's been vetted by Panarrays, I'm looking good because I can say I'm almost like a Panarrays vetted vendor.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, because if they come back to me, yeah, that you could see that being a status thing.
So I'm just kind of, it'd be interesting. I'd be interesting to see the workflow. Also, now I want to watch V for Vendetta.
Yep.
Got me into the.
I don't know why. This is interesting. Just like this, the sort of checklist of things that they look at. Smart questionnaires, whatever that means. Human factor, fourth party vendor discovery. Ooh, who are their vendors?
There it is.
This is tapping into supply chain, which we're seeing a lot this year.
And it's like, hey, I need a vendor to do X, Y, Z, but I want to make sure they're secure. And then it's like, oh, here's the vendor we recommend, right?
Yeah, this is, in spite of my skepticism and your skepticism on whether this can be gamed or used, I think it's a pretty good business. Cool.
All right,
kill
Let's get into it.
All right,
Is it? It's time. I think it's
time.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Yes, it is time. If you missed Rancher Demo 1, go back 2 weeks and you can check it out. It's on YouTube. I'm going to clip it. I got to put it up as like its own clip too. But you would have seen this. So the new and improved Rancher UI that came out with version 2.6. In part 1, I had it on my home server. Now I have OpenShift running on the home server. So I just open this as a Docker container on my Mac, which is awesome. It's just, hey, Docker run, and you get it up and running very quickly without going too much and repeating myself from the last demo. I mentioned that we were going to set up some clusters in GCP, AWS. I was partially lying because I was a little lazy and I just moved my cloud credentials over from GCP. But what is very interesting is how easy it is to set up a cluster and control it from this UI on my MacBook. So pretty simple without showing you the JSON of my GCP instance. Basically create cloud credentials, Amazon, Azure, Google. When I went into Google, it's create a name, description, and then you're going to have to go into Google's IAM and create the service account that's associated with it. So you create a service account. It's going to give you a key. Now you have authentication for that key, but then you have to authorize it to do specific actions. So realistically, if you were an admin and you set this up, you would say, hey, like, I'm going to give Rancher these specific capabilities to manage Kubernetes instances. Also, you can create virtual machines and install RKE on top. So you can also give it permission to control compute instances as well, if that was something that you wanted to do. But yeah, pretty simple. Go in, cloud credentials, create a key, save it. When you create it in Google, you can also give it a time limit, obviously. So like mine's set to 30 days and it's going to expire. It's also just so that I don't screw something up. And what's great, when I did this last night, it took 4 minutes. So we can just chit chat while I create this. But so we're going to create it in Google GKE.
Are you doing it right now?
Yeah, we'll just do it live. What should we call
cool.
it? Steve's home? Sure.
That's where I live.
So, I mean, it's great. You can have member roles. In terms of RKE, you can manage and inject roles automatically. So I only have one role right now in this UI because I just created it last night. But if you were an organization that wanted to manage it, you can have all these default roles that are already set up. And then you could just, your cluster will automatically have this when it's deployed. Again, labels and annotations, specific names, specific clusters to help you organize all your different workloads. And Google Project ID is there, which, I mean, you can get it if you're in the IAM. I'm just going to go over and, I mean, you're going to see it anyways. Not a big deal. Well, you can't see it right now. I'm in the home page of Google copying my project ID, but you're going to see it in 2 seconds. So,
all right.
Yeah, worst case, I just delete it. Hey, if you can hack it, good for you. Cloud credentials. So I clicked Rancher because that was the GKE specific credential. You can add it directly from in here. And then I'm just going to configure the cluster. So zonal regional, I'm just going to click zonal US Central C. I believe it's actually one of the lower cost ones, maybe. And now you have all of the options for GKE and all of the default cluster versions that are available. I'm just going to pick the default network, default node subnet. And these are all, there is more configuration in the GKE Kubernetes UI, I noticed. So I'm kind of curious if like this obviously isn't the best workflow. I think to a certain extent, you would probably want to use something like Terraform to configure your GKE clusters. And then Rancher has this little container that will report the information back to the UI. So in terms of, automated workflow, that would probably be the one that I would choose for something like this. But again, all the additional options, logging service, monitoring service, maintenance window, cluster labels, node pools. So container optimized OS with Docker, small, I'm just gonna pick a couple of small node pools, root disk size, and let's just name this the default node pool. We'll give it auto scaling. I definitely have a quota for like 20 or something like that, but minimum node count, we're going to keep 3. Maximum node count, we're going to put it at 6. Upgrade. And we're going to create. But yeah, pretty awesome. Import existing. So there is, if I wanted to import from GKE, let's say your Terraform, you set this up. This would be exactly how you deploy it. So you're putting in the project ID, you're putting in the roles, and then basically it's just going to go use that Google project ID to get into basically the Kubernetes service and then pull the information, install its little container on your hosts so that it knows what's going on.
Cool.
Yeah.
I
Any
missed
questions?
the import. I missed the import. What different platforms would it get from? So EKS, AKS, GKE.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any Kubernetes cluster, really.
Oh, and then generic. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, you think about it, it's just a little container that's going to go and pull the Kubernetes API information and send it back, right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Now, this is provisioning, and I believe I'll switch the tab in a second. Wait, why can I not share? Oh, I got to unshare. And then reshare with a different. This is kind of annoying.
Oh, because you did these specific.
Yeah, you can't just like switch back and forth, unfortunately, in the UI. But
in StreamYard, yeah.
But yeah, we're back, and there it is.
Oh, it's a. Oh, yeah, there we are in Google. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. So very interesting.
Nothing running yet, right? Yeah, but that's awesome. So I guess what's the advantage here, right? I can be controlling. I can be truly multi-cloud.
Yeah, I mean, the only challenge obviously is just because you can control Kubernetes from a different UI that isn't the Google Cloud Console, you're not getting the same flavor of Kubernetes, right? They all have different maintenance schedules and different upgrade cadences. So, not to toot my own horn, this is sort of the selling point for OpenShift, right? It's like one unified Kubernetes version across all cloud platforms. It's just costly, right? So big companies are willing to pay it. Smaller companies, you're not going to get the advantage out of it. Typically, I think Rancher is really good for small, medium-sized companies, especially like you might have 2 or 3 Kubernetes clusters for production, 2 or 3 for dev or test, right? Like that's manageable, especially through this admin. It's like, yeah, okay, you have 9 clusters, and I can see all the admins. I can see the, maybe probably 50 people that interact in Kubernetes in my organization. Once you get to scale, though, I really would be curious what companies are using Rancher across their whole company. Because I guarantee you there are small projects where people are like, oh, like we really like Rancher, let's use it. I don't really see the use case at scale.
Perfect, because that's what it's these questions we want to bring up, because as I said before this, and it's fine to say this because they said it, we can get some people from Rancher on the show who said once you've done the part 1, part 2 demo, whatever questions you have remaining, they're happy to bring someone onto the show and go through, like, this is actually how you would scale it, and maybe poke into some of the things that were hidden, because if we didn't cover it then, and thought, why didn't you do that? It's right here. How did you not see this? Then they can do that for us. So we are going to get a guest from Rancher on the show in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's really funny because I have OpenShift running on the server, but my flavor of choice, the way I like to set it up is Ansible, Terraform, and Rancher, because it is that simple, right? That is the massive benefit of Rancher. And also, I realized that they have they've changed their marketplace a little bit, which that's probably my biggest question, because there used to be in the old UI, you go in the marketplace and you see all the apps. But Adrian talked about it because he said not all the apps are vetted, so it's like a huge library of things that you don't even know if it's supported. So they don't really provide value to the end user. But yeah, so they changed the marketplace a little bit up, and also there is the CD component, which I think is really interesting because operationally you have the management UI. If you have the CD component built in there where you can plug all your repos in and then just inject code into the different clusters, I think that's a really great use case too. So
yeah, true.
Obviously with a little bit more manual provisioning. I don't really like true CD, but
yeah, interesting. I think the other last question, which you did touch on, again, my mind gets going around. I don't hear enough about Rancher in terms of if I'm not, a small to medium, and I've already got some level of, I don't know, so let's say maturity within multiple clouds, because who knows? Let's choose any bank on the planet where one team's in GCP and the other one's in Azure, and someone now in charge is like, oh my goodness, really? You're kidding me? We have Alibaba Cloud somewhere? Like, whatever. How do I unify that? And what's the fastest way to make that happen under one roof?
Yeah.
Is there a use case for Rancher to go, look, let's get some way for somebody to see everything that's happening?
Yeah.
And
there is a reason why Rancher partnered with Microsoft for Arc, right? Azure Arc, I think originally when it first got released in early 2020, early 2019. You can use RKE, because really RKE, Rancher Kubernetes Engine, is just Kubernetes. You deploy it on your on-prem stuff, and you also deploy it in Microsoft, or you can use Microsoft's specific version. That to me is the Rancher, and managing clusters on-prem is one of the huge upsides, because that issue hasn't really been solved by the open source community. It's pretty much like you talk about on-prem Kubernetes, and you're either managing it yourself, which is a massive hassle. You're doing Rancher, you're doing OpenShift, or you're doing something like Tanzu, right? There's a couple others, but really, and those obviously come with a huge cost associated with them too, right? There's a there's a back and forth. So let's say you're a smaller company, you have a bunch of servers, but your IT group is like maybe 50 to 100 employees, and you have all this on-prem hardware.
Mhm.
It's a great solution for getting going with stuff, right? The other question I just have is like, what are you using for virtualization on that hardware? Because that's also going to change your assessment. Like if you're using something like RHEL and like Cockpit or something like that, it doesn't really make sense to do that and use Rancher now that they got acquired by SUSE, right?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, we keep saying just Rancher too, and you're supposed to say SUSE Rancher.
Yeah, SUSE Rancher.
Oops.
I know. Next time.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, let them do it when they come on.
Yeah, if let us know what we missed, what I missed. I shouldn't throw Steve under the bus here. It was honestly really fun, really easy. And I said, like, last night just going in and setting it up, pull the credentials, and you're good to go. It's pretty cool. Definitely worth it's worth like playing around. I think eventually you're going to want to get out of the UI anyways if you're managing clusters. I think it's right.
Yeah, totally.
Anyways,
nice one. That was good. And there's plenty. You left enough for Rancher enthusiasts to poke holes in for when we have a returning guest. So perfect. Thanks. That rocked.
No problem.
And that is the end of our show. Any what?
Yeah, I guess we have QCon's coming up in 2 weeks. Week and a half.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, so next week I have a bunch of predictions and things you want to look forward to. I'm going to go through the talks and see what I'm going to follow. Steve, I think you should do the same. Right. Have a little war.
All right, yeah. Let's go to it.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good. I'll be reporting. I think I might be reporting remote. Anyway. Either way, I'm at an AWS conference next week, but definitely that'll be exciting. So I'll report back on what kind of insanity happens there. Yeah, I think that's it. We're done. We thought we'd keep it under an hour, but
yeah, a lot of topics. We were out for 2 weeks as Steve was gallivanting across Europe. So
yes, I was.
All right. Yeah, tune in next week. Super excited and looking forward to KubeCon. Steve, any final thoughts?
None. I just got back and it was great to do the show, and big thanks to you for providing most of the content.
Yeah, no problem. All right, you got next one.
Yeah.
All right, tune in next week. I'm Mike Foster.
I'm Steve Giguere.